is all about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's decision to grant clemency to 175 Nigerians, which has continued to spark reactions across the country. Now, the presidential pardon approved by the Council of State covers offenders convicted of financial crimes, illegal mining and drug-related offences, as well as some sentenced to death. Now, among the notable names are Major General Mamman Vatsa, executed in 1986 for an alleged coup plot, Ken Saru-Wiwa and the Ogoni 8 granted posthumous pardons nearly 30 years after their execution, and Herbert Macaulay, one of Nigeria's early nationalists, also pardoned posthumously. Now, others include Professor Magaji Garba, a former university vice-chancellor convicted for corruption, and several convicts linked to drug and white-collar crimes said to have shown remorse and rehabilitation. Now, the presidency says the move aligns with the spirit of national healing and justice reform, but critics insist it could weaken the anti-corruption and anti-drug war and send the wrong signal about accountability. So this morning we ask, is this an act of compassion and justice, or one that undermines public trust in the rule of law? Now, joining us to discuss this are Eze Onyekpere, lead director at the Center for Social Justice here in the studio, and we have Auwal Musa Rafsanjani, executive director of CISLAC and chairman of Amnesty International Nigeria, who will be joining us via Zoom. Gentlemen, thank you for being here on Daybreak this morning.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us.
All right, straight up into this presidential pardon by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. As the barrister, according to the law, what do you think were the legal and, in some parts, political circumstances surrounding this presidential pardon?
Well, let us get it clear that Section 175 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, provides the power for prerogative of mercy, which is exercisable by the president after consulting with the Council of State. But when a constitution, the dry letters of a law, makes such provision, they are supposed to be, whoever are the operators, are not to exercise those powers in a vacuum. Those powers are exercisable taking cognizance of other sections of the Constitution, because the Constitution ought to be read as a whole, as a totality. You don't take one part of the Constitution and read it in such a way that it will contradict other sections of the Constitution. You also look at fundamental objectives of the state. What are the clear societal objectives, whether it's human welfare, fighting corruption, which is there in Section 15, promoting education, promoting health, growing the economy, making sure people get housing, making sure people can go to their homes and sleep, two eyes closed, without the fear of criminals taking their lives. So when you look at these things as a package, then you can now say, case A, this is the reason why we are doing it, even though the president is not obliged by law to begin to explain to all of us what were the information at his disposal. But the little information he gave at his disposal, some of them were in prison, they've shown remorse, it doesn't really tally. I could divide these cases into various units or divisions. Cases like the Kensaru and his brothers, it was clear it was under a military dictatorship, and lawyers that attended those proceedings made it clear that there was really no justice was miscarried. There was a miscarriage of justice. If it was a proper court observing the rules of due process, they would not have been hanged, they would not have been executed. That we can understand. The Mamman Vasa case was also a military tribunal which sat in secret, and media reports since then have been suggesting that he was unduly convicted and executed. All right? So those ones, we could begin to understand the dynamics and the power play, and what you can say, assuming there was a proper trial, they may not have, the courts may not have read those judgments, and of course they would have still been alive today. That can be understandable. Issues around Herbert Macaulay, what he was convicted for, I'm not too sure. It's neither here nor there. This is a 1999 constitution. being used to pardon somebody who the British authorities convicted, is in 1913 or 19? None of us here was born by that time. And will we really deem those British laws acts of Nigerian Parliament to say on the basis of that? I don't know the message it's sending. And of course, for so many people in our generation, how many people even knew that Herbert Macaulay, who was one of the foremost nationalists, had a trial or case? That sleeping dog should have been left to lie, because by telling me he was prosecuted and for fraud or something like that, either jailed or made to pay a fine, it begins to reduce my estimation of who that towering giant I used to think is. And unless you are saying that the British authorities did not deploy due process, but if he was duly convicted through the due process of law, and you are simply saying because he's a patriot, he's one of our foremost nationalists, you should pardon him, that's not my idea of how to use the prerogative of mercy. Then, clear cases of drug offenders, kidnappers,
and corruption.
No, hold on. Let's even look at this. For one of the kidnappers, I think I understand was the media reported this was one of those who kidnapped the former legal colleague, Chief Onyekpere. Now, when you look at these things as a totality, a dangerous man who was maintaining kidnapping camps in about 2 or 3 states, and the victims that he had dealt with are still around, you may be unduly exposing those people to danger for their lives. Because telling me he claims he's repented, he's no longer going to carry drugs, he's no longer going to kidnap. I mean, when you are out there, anybody's out there committing crime, you believe you will never be caught. But when it is clear to you, you've been caught, you can't escape. Of course, so many people claim to have become born again. Those who are Christians claim to have become born again in the cell. These were dangerous men who kill on a day-to-day basis, who go to all kinds of devilish monsters to do juju. But when everything fails, you know that there's no way. You can always claim like you're like Paul. On your way to Damascus, the angel of the Lord or Jesus appeared to you that you're a changed man. The test of knowing whether you are changed is take this man back to his natural habitat where he's Lord, and his boys come, and he sees AK-47s, and for 6 months, he doesn't commit any more crime. I will believe he met Jesus. So I don't believe any of them that they've changed. And there should be some fair desert. Okay? And even the lady that killed the husband, I'm not a fan of capital punishment to say kill. Okay? Because, I mean, I look at what the state does as cold-blooded murder. But the circumstances of the case and how she killed that young man in cold blood, I wouldn't say that she should be hanged. Because the prerogative of mercy gives the president the power to either pardon you as a whole, remiss some punishment, or say instead of death penalty, serve life imprisonment, or instead of death penalty, stay here for at least 15, 20 years. Let's get the feeling, because I don't think it's up to 10. Is it up to 10 years she was sentenced?
No.
And this is how will, yes, we want to assist her. How will the families of that young man, the family, the brothers, sisters, mother, father, because from the picture of that young man, I said maybe the parents are still alive.
Of course.
How will they take this prerogative of mercy? They will be crying, so our son has died, and because you come from a family where you people know who knows the president, or you are top politicians. So it doesn't tell well. If for me, I would have said, serve at least 15, 20 years in prison. Then, if you show good character, you have changed, then we can pardon you. So, there is a whole lot of challenge. Drug peddlers, what are you going to tell NDLA? NDLA is busy arresting some young men, and maybe who may have carried, assuming the people, there are drug kingpins that have been released, carried big quantities. Maybe carried a 20 kg of cocaine, and then you are letting him loose, and then you are arresting somebody who is just picking maybe 0.05 kg. I mean, there are a whole lot of questions. So for me, you should have thought these things through. Not everybody on that list merited pardon, because we are sending very wrong signals. Okay? Because that means simply commit an offense. All you need to do is to know somebody who knows somebody, and you have access to the powers that be. All right. And then the corruption you talked about. Where is anti-corruption war going with that?
All
All right, I think we have Mr. Auwal on the line. Thank you for joining us this morning. All right, let's look at the transparency in the process of, the presidential pardon. I mean, one major complaint from Nigeria is that the whole pardon process seems hidden from the public. And, should this not be, the criteria or deliberation by the council or states be made public for accountability?
Thank you very much. I think Nigerians need to realize that we are under what is called state capture, and therefore, whatever the president or some few people want is what will happen, irrespective of public rejection or reaction or even support. So we are in a serious crisis in the country where impunity, recklessness, abuse of due process, and calculated attempt to demoralize the society is happening. The previous administration started this era after the anti-corruption agency spent hundreds of millions, if not billions, investigating, prosecuting, and eventually getting some corrupt people to go to prison. The previous administration that claimed to be fighting corruption, they also released those corrupt people. At the same time, there are thousands of Nigerians languishing in various jail without even trial. They have been under waiting trial. Nobody speaks about them because they are sons and daughters of nobody. And some of them, their offenses is not even a major offenses, and they've already been punished for staying, longer than necessary, waiting for them to be tried. So there's nothing like transparency in this process. What you see is just attempt to ensure that you undermine the effort of the various law enforcement agencies in this country, because EFCC, ICPC, and even the NLD, they are doing their best, putting their life at risk, and then someone will just come and take this kind of decision. Secondly, if you see people who are also involved in this, some of them, they are doing economic sabotage to the country. They are engaging in illegal mining. So which means that Nigeria will continue to lose revenue from the activities of criminals who are engaged in either illegal mining or even oil theft, which is a major problem to our economy. So it means that people who are involved in economic sabotage in the nation, they are actually given, opportunity to continue with their business. People who are doing drugs, who are destroying the young people in this country by providing drugs to them, selling drugs to them, they are equally being freed. People who have looted the nation, deprived Nigerians from, access to water, to roads, to healthcare, to education, because they have diverted the money, they are equally being told that you can just go home. So at the end of the day, you have succeeded in demoralizing the society and encouraging criminality, and making some people to feel that, okay, we can commit this offense and we can get away with it simply by our political association. I think it's a huge implication that the President Tinubu, maybe perhaps if he is not deliberately doing that, that maybe he has done. And those who advise him to do this, they have not done justice to Nigeria and to Nigerians. You can't just kill people just like that and then you are pardoned. It means that you will move freely. Nobody will call you as a killer. If you commit all this looting, nobody can call you a corrupt person because you have been pardoned. In fact, if you call the the person a killer or a drug trafficker or a corrupt person. He can even take you to court because he has been completely exonerated. This kind of pardon is honestly not for the good of the nation, not for the good of the people. You can pardon people who genuinely deserve to be, but not people who are supposed to be serving, for example, 20 years jail time and they serve 2 years, and then you say you have pardoned them, exonerated all the crimes they have committed. So why did in Nigeria, in the first place, why did the government go after these people? If this is the way you want to run the nation, then it means that you should just abolish all the agencies so that they will stop risking their life and let the country go that way. If this is what you want, after you left, then decent people can come and fix the country.
All right. All right, let me go to Barrister Eze as, the lead director at the Center for Social Justice, a legal practitioner. With all the skepticism surrounding this presidential pardon, especially when it comes to, pardoning convicted people convicted for corruption, as well as convicts linked with drug and white-collar crimes, do you think that this pardon undermines the rule of law or set a dangerous precedent?
Definitely, it undermines the rule of law, sets a dangerous precedent, and demoralizes the police, the EFCC, the ICPC, NDLEA, anybody who is involved in apprehending, investigating, and forwarding these cases to court. Even the judges who sit in judgment, taking trials that lasted for a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, under very tough conditions. And at the end of the day, this is the result. It sends a message, it's like your work is not being valued. And moreover, go and see our federal budgets. Every year we vote huge amounts of money for these agencies. If after doing their work meticulously, and this is the result, so it's a waste of public resources. You could as well, like Rafsanjani said, well, there are no more laws. And it also erodes the legitimacy of the exercise of executive power. Because when citizens begin to see that power is exercised not in the general interest of the state, but for narrow political and selfish reasons. Because even though the president may say, oh, I have this power to exercise, and there's nothing we can do except to complain. But how does that make the average citizen? How does that average citizen look at the president or the council of state or whoever is advising him or his attorney general? You will end up, even though there's nothing much you can do except to talk, you end up thinking that this is an irresponsible exercise of power. Because like I said, power is given in the hope that the person exercising it is imbued with great reason and sense of responsibility. And in my own words, I will say that the person sucked very well from his mother's breast, because wisdom is supposed to come from there. So when you begin to exercise power, because nobody can question you, in such a way as to suggest that maybe you did not understand why that power was granted in the first place, then that's the challenge. And I did mention that this kind of power was granted not just to be used for political purposes, for the bigger interests of the state. And I've listed some of these issues, that there were trials which most lawyers can vouch that it was simply because A was in power, he wanted to deal with B or C. And so nobody can vouch that that trial was fair. If you are pardoning people who were convicted in such circumstances, it makes sense. So I think the way forward is that even though this is the exercise of political power, whether it may involve an amendment of the Constitution to tie these things to more well-nuanced means of review, not just the president and the council, involving the legal profession, involving some other persons who may examine these facts to be able to arrive at a decision. And such decisions could possibly also be open to be challengeable. Again, maybe at the Supreme Court. Because the way we are going, we are now saying, commit a crime, you get away with it. Okay? look at what happened a couple of days ago. Somebody was accused of certificate forgery, and he resigned. Now, some people said it shows he has some little iota of honesty, even though what he was accused was certificate forgery, or some self-dignity left. Because other people have been accused of that, bigger crimes, and they sat there, and nobody is saying anything, nobody is complaining. So we can't continue if we want to say we are doing anti-corruption. We want to do national moral rebirth. We want to have a society where the younger generation will be looking up to some elders, looking up to something as a way of life, which represents the Nigerian spirit, as a way of life, which is the path that leads to growth, which is the moral rebirth we are looking for. But if this is the example being given, I don't see any young man trying to copy what is right, the hard way, which is very difficult. Everybody will want to cut corners in the hope that somewhere, somehow, you will be freed. And like was pointed out, a pardon goes to the root of the conviction. So in the eyes of the law, it is as if he never committed a crime. Those circumstances leading his conviction never happened. And possibly, if you actually call him a thief, even though he was convicted of stealing, he could actually go to court to say, hey, you are lying, you are insulting me, you are lying, you are defaming my good character, my very good character.
All right, Mr. Auwal, when you look at, the presidential pardon list closely, you get to, see that, most of the people that have been pardoned were the ones that committed, grievous offenses. But then we have a particular case on ground about a young man, Jackson, who murdered out of self-defense, murdered, a Fulani herder that attacked him in his farm while he was, cultivating and doing all of his daily stuff as a farmer. And this has really sparked a huge criticism from Nigerians. Now, do you think that, that presidential pardon list is being biased? And do you feel that that particular young man, because a lot of Nigerians are really pointing at that particular case, because they are saying that if criminals that engaged in crimes like, illegal mining, cases like, murder, drug laundry, fraud, and what have you, are being pardoned, why is it that that particular young man who committed that crime out of self-defense is being left there?
The truth is that he is not the only person that has been left there. If you go to the prisons in the country, you will see so many Nigerians that have suffered this injustice because a big man or a big woman is interested in jailing him or her. They are being kept there, and some of them, from what we have seen, they have been there for several years, even are waiting for trial, not even, trial yet. But they have spent sufficient number, of years in the prison or in whatever, correctional center you call it, nobody has come to look at their cases, and the incident of the young man here, from what I even heard, even his family had actually, the family of the victim, they have actually, forgiven the person that have done that murder. I think the issue is that Nigerian state is anti-ordinary person, in my opinion, because if these big people would do this huge capital, crime against the nation and the people, and you have forgiven them, and people who have done minor, offenses, that did not even amount to any crime that you may think of, you are keeping them, in prison and punishing them, making them to even learn to be more harder criminal, because some of the people that you kept there, some of them committed small offenses, and you join them with hard criminals. So they are even learning more criminals activities, more crimes, in that place. So the whole idea is not about justice. It is not about equity. It is not about correcting anything. It is the people who have been consistently holding this country to ransom. So when they run out of luck and the determination of the law enforcement made it possible for them to go and visit or test a prison, then they will come back and reorganize and make sure that this is. But let me tell you, one of the biggest implications for this in that the President Tinubu has done all over the world. Countries are making efforts to get rid of people that are committing atrocities like being involved in drug trafficking, being involved in high profile offenses like this economic sabotage that is going on, and people that are doing a lot of corruption. They are actually global risks, and all over the world countries are making effort to make sure that they deal decisively with such kind of person. So for Nigeria to come and be romancing, and supporting, protecting, pardoning the crimes of this category of people, for me, Nigeria once again has entered another, problem globally, because countries will no longer be taking us serious, will not be respecting us. Instead for you to look at, fairness and justice on this matter, you just made a blanket, pardoning. If you pardon people who have killed people, who have drugged people, who have destroyed the morals and the ethics, the conduct of our young people, what are you trying to, say? They will still come back and continue with their business. If you now kill somebody and you now, instead for you to say, okay, out of maybe 10-year jail, go and serve half, we have forgiven you, but to completely say you have pardoned that person, you have not done justice to that other victim. I think they need to really think and revisit this. In fact, as a matter of fact, I'm calling for revisiting of this pardoning thing, because it is absolutely immoral and ethical and completely, helping to promote injustice in the society. Let them revisit this, and those who genuinely deserve to be forgiven, they should forgive them. Those who deserve, their terms to be reduced, they should reduce it. Those who deserve not to even be pardoning, they should not do that, because if you do that, you are actually promoting immorality and unethical conduct, as well as impunity, because some people who have powers, who have money, they will continue to do this. And for the drugs people, they will just continue with their global network of drugs, which will continue to make the country look irresponsible.
All right. Barrister Eze, we know that a lot of Nigerians, majority of Nigerians, are very skeptical when it comes to the judicial system, as well as other law enforcement agencies. But with this presidential pardon, do you think that there should be a judicial oversight of future pardons? And if so, what reforms might be necessary in order for it to be properly aligned?
That's a difficult one, but like I said, we should have a committee beyond this council that is a bit technical. Lawyers should be there, other professionals, and reputable Nigerians of integrity to be able to review in future and make a recommendation to the president. And that those recommendations should carry great weight. Because what I see is that politics superseded propriety, integrity, and the fight against corruption in the decision that led to these pardons. So it's not going to be an easy one. All over the world, there is this power which is left to be exercised at the highest level. But like I did say, these powers are laid on the assumption, for instance, you give a policeman a gun. And if he fires a gun, somebody is bound to die. So it is given to him in the public interest, hoping that, in the belief that he's not just going to come to the street and start shooting anybody. That even if he's a criminal and a robber, even if you catch him, you're not supposed to shoot him there. The highest, if he's trying to attack you or to shoot you, is that maybe you may shoot at his leg to disable him. These are the assumptions behind. I'm just giving a raw instance of somebody who is handling a gun on behalf of all of us, so that when we are asleep, he will be awake and protecting all of us. So also is the power given to the president. Such powers, I expected that this is a very reasonable fellow who has grown up in the society, imbibed the morality of the society, imbibed its ethics, and is actually the first citizen in terms of the morality and ethics of that society. He is more or less in the place of a very big imam or bishop who is abiding by maybe what is written in the Bible or in the Quran. So such a fellow is expected to be above board. Okay, such a fellow is expected to be that when he talks, you know that he thought over it very well and considered the interest of everybody before arriving at a decision. But unfortunately, this is what we have. So I am suggesting that in future, there could possibly be an amendment to that constitution to expand that committee. All right? Because even this last time, I understand that the former heads of state, of virtually all of them, none of them attended that meeting where this decision was taken. Okay? So we need to move it beyond the political, because people at that level are top-level politicians, and I don't expect a Jonathan or Basanjo or a Babangida, if they were at the meeting, to start opposing a recommendation. The president says, this is what I want to do. And you now start telling him, no, you can't do that. Because it will be like you had your own time. Did anybody oppose you? Now I'm having my own time. You now want to dictate to me what will happen. So for the being politically correct, whatever he suggests there, hardly will anybody of that caliber say no. Even if they have to disagree, they have to make it in such a, you know, there's this diplomatic finesse that at the end of the day, you are saying something, but you are not saying anything. It's like the man can carry go, but you are simply trying to be as nice as possible. These things are matters of life and death for Nigerians. They are not issues that you employ all the diplomats. And like Rafsanjani said, sooner than later, people are going to start questioning that you have a clean bill of health in terms of your character by the Nigerian state. Because they will say, okay, you are convicted for drug trafficking, and we are not allowing drug people in here. You want now to come in simply because the president of Nigeria pardoned you. Sorry, we don't recognize that. You know, it will make us much more being queried at international airport, much more being queried in terms of granting visa or general reputation across the world. Like you're saying, people are tightening the screws all over the world to stop white-collar crime, to stop stealing from public resources, to stop drug trafficking, to stop, in fact, in some places, kidnapping is unheard of, to stop robbery. And in your own case, you are loosening the screws to make it much more permissive of society. So as we go on, you know, all the countries in the world, they have embassies here. The ambassadors are reporting to them weekly and saying, see what happened in Nigeria, see what happened. So sometimes, now in Nigeria, you don't blame anybody. If I were on the other end, if I ask, have you been convicted before? Pardon, you should say no. I will ask, to introduce another question. Have you been convicted and pardoned in Nigeria? And if you say you've been convicted and pardoned, I will classify you as those who have been convicted. But normally, a pardon should go to the root. Do you understand what I'm saying? These are questions that should come up on a day-to-day basis as you do business, as you go for visa, as you interact with others. But if the ambassadors advise them well, the question will no longer be whether you've been convicted in Nigeria. It will now be whether you've been convicted. First one, have you been convicted? You say no. Follow up with it is, have you been convicted and pardoned? As the second,
Hi, Mr. Auwal. Do you think it's time to review or, limit the president's power to pardon certain categories of offenders, especially corrupt cases? Hello, Mr. Auwal, are you there? I think we'll
can you hear me?
I'll bring that to Barrister. Okay. All right. Mr. Auwal, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
All right. Do you think it's time to limit the president's power to pardon certain categories of offenders, especially corruption cases?
I think it is important that we know whatever we are doing, we put the nation first. I think the absence of patriotism and nationalism in some of the public, official conduct is what is lending us to this. This personal interest, or determination to protect the groups that continue to deal decisively with Nigeria and Nigerians need to be checkmated. I think, if you have judiciary and judges have made judgment and convinced beyond all reasonable doubt that someone has committed an offense, I think even though the Constitution, has have that opportunity to give the president powers to pardon, I think this pardon should not be on certain category of crimes. I think people who have committed, offenses around corruption, economic saboteurs, drugs trafficking, killing people and kidnapping, the president should hands up, his so-called pardoning there, because it's when you say pardon, it means that completely that crime have been erased, and in fact, if anybody dare call you, or report the case, that person will go to court and deal with you again. So for me, there's need to do constitutional amendment to limit the president powers of this pardon. There are certain category of people that must not be forgiven. Some people believe that, yes, because some people have friends who are into drugs, so they should protect them. Some people, they say some people are into corruption, so they have to protect some corrupt, associate and friends and this thing. Some people say they have friends who are committing criminality around killing and kidnapping, so they have to be protected. So in order to avoid all those nuances and allegation and suspicion, I think it's very clear to me that we need to amend the Constitution to limit this open-ended, powers from the president or from the governor, because it's not only the president, but also some governors have, such kind of power of pardoning that they do usually do. Let us look at people that have been unfairly and unjustly being kept in those places because they quarrel with one big man or big woman, or because they criticize government. You go and bundle them inside prison for years. Some they even disappeared. We have cases of disappearance of persons in this country. Nobody is talking about those human beings, those people. I think it is important that we review this in, and if you have people who place the country at their heart in terms of its, equal image globally, in terms of the moral and the, behavior of its citizens, I think there are certain decisions they will not, be taken, no matter how lucrative politically it will be to them. I think they should first look at the nation, because it is only when you have Nigeria that you can also have this. When the country is condemned globally, everywhere people are condemning us because we are 4-9, we are referred as killers, kidnappers, we are referred as all sorts of, names that are not really good for our country. And we in civil society, we are doing everything possible to help educate globally, that our country, not all of us are criminals, not all of us are corrupt, not all of us are killers. People will find it difficult when they see this official, endorsement of, clearing people who clearly offended the state and the people of Nigeria. They are giving us too much work, to do. At home, we are battling. Internationally, we are battling. And all this thing for the sake of our nation, or for the sake of our people. So I think, Nigerian officials need to think twice, because this whole idea of romancing with criminals and, forgiving them is not good for them, because they themselves too, they will be regarded like they are also, part of these people. When they travel, nobody will respect them. When you carry a Nigerian passport, already we have that stigma now. When you carry a Nigerian passport, they will start looking at your passport and they will start looking at you as a potential criminals. Now, if government is doing this official pardoning to people who have high profile cases of criminality, honestly speaking, it doesn't speak good for our nation, and it's also jeopardizing all of us when we are traveling or even at home. Our children, we are battling to, ensure that they did not follow the turn of all these people who are taking drugs. Now you are coming to pardon people who are, supplying drugs to the people. Look, honestly speaking, this is really one policy that, or one thing that the president has done, that I believe he himself, if he understood it very well, he would not have taken this, no matter how much the pressure politically.
All right, back to you, Barrister Eze. We've seen the public feedback and the backlash. Do you think that that backlash is rooted more in the individual who was, or individuals that have been pardoned, or the symbolism of the act itself? And with those that are part of the pardoned, with should I call them hardened criminals, or that perpetrated corruption, drug, peddling, and all of that? Is there a chance of a rehabilitation and a reintegration, which might be a form or would be able to form a stronger part of the government's justification for this clemency?
Let me start by saying that Nigerians are not happy with the way the power was exercised, and also the individuals, not necessarily an ad hominem stuff, but the individuals because of what they have done. And of course, as at now, we are now re-examining the system that allowed the constitutional provisions that allowed the wide exercise of this power. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware that Nigeria has very good rehabilitating system that you can say that when these people come out, once you free them and they walk out from the doors of the jail, they have no more obligation to report anywhere for any training, for any counseling. They are just like me and you. They can go home and decide to sleep or find another job and continue whatever they are doing. So the opportunities for them to be rehabilitated should have been exploited while they were in jail before they come out, or attach a condition to their release. But when you say pardon, it's just like the person should go. And I've always been of the opinion that whatever you find in the system, whether it's in the economy, whether it's in morality, whether it's in crime, in whatever way, even in sports, everything is hosted to power. Power determines what happens. I'm just coming back from another television station where we are discussing Nigeria's debt. Okay? And this were part of the issues. That is why in the street lingo, I will keep repeating, shine your eyes whenever it is time for election. The president and the governor, presidents and governors have powers of life and death. Literally. A person convicted of murder should be hanged. So it's because of the president that has saved this lady from the hangman. All right? She should have been gone. Just like the person she killed. So the president has power of life and death. The president has power whether you will get employed or not. If the president insists on closing this television tomorrow and makes it an agenda, no matter what you do, you can complain and grumble and maybe talk, but he can make it impossible for this place to function well, or ruin the place in such a way that whoever owns it will be forced to close it down. Your economy, the same thing. ASU is giving a warning strike today, the same thing. The health sector is in shambles. So I can go on and on, but the point I'm making, this way this power was exercised is that the president has a very wide canvas, the whole of Nigeria, to paint whatever he likes. So if he's a nice person and a good painter, he'll be drawing beautiful pictures. Right. If he doesn't know how to draw, he wants to be mischievous, he'll be drawing things that everybody wants to cover his eyes to see. So that is why you cannot separate what is going on with the electoral process and maybe the reform of the electoral law, so that we can actually get good, moral, quality people to assume power either as governor, president, senators, and all those stuff. Because at the end of the day, they determine what happens to us.
All right. Thank you very much, Barrister Izzy Onyekpere. I hope I got it right this time.
Well, you tried. Well, you can afford to do better.
All right. Thank you for being here right on Daybreak. And thank you, Auwal Musa Rafsanjani, for joining us this morning on Daybreak, shedding more light on the president's pardon or the presidential pardon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.